Hey everybody, it's Adrian Vandenberg. You may know me from my 13 years with Whitesnake. I've got my new band, Vandenberg's Moon Kings, and you're listening to Focus on Metal. So I would say, turn it up. Focus on Metal!
Hey, Metalheads, Scott Thompson here, welcoming you to another week of that, which has come to be called Focus on Metal. Hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with Richie's chat with Robin McCauley. If you haven't heard that one, then make your way up to iTunes, Amazon Music, or to focusonmetalpod.com, and you can get that episode streamed directly into your little metal ear holes. But this week, we kick off the first of 2 weeks of talking with Warrant's Joey Allen. And the primary focus of the chat is the anniversary of their album Dog Eat Dog. But, within there is also Richie's going to probe him about all kinds of other things as well. But like I said, this is week 1 of 2 of that. And I just figured that, we've been having several weeks of, almost hour-long or over hour-long episodes. And the weather is getting warmer. People got things to do. And so I thought, why not split this one off into 2 more manageable bite-sized chunks for your listening pleasure. And speaking about listening pleasure, I got to say, the last probably week and a half has definitely been a bonanza of vinyl for me. I know if you folks keep track of us on Twitter, I've been posting a couple of things that have come on, but I did actually make a count before I sat down to do this episode to see what the latest pile was. And over the last probably week and a half, I'm looking at 22 single and double albums that I've had roll in. And these aren't freebies. This is stuff I'm going out and buying. And that doesn't include the one that just rolled in today, finally, which was the 5-disc set for Rush's Moving Pictures, the anniversary box set. But I've definitely been getting some really great stuff in, including all of the new Armored Saint reissues. Those are great. A couple of rarities that I posted up on Twitter. And just, all kinds of good stuff. But it has definitely been a good couple of days of vinyl. I have most certainly caught the vinyl bug as strong as I did way back when I was a wee metalhead. So as I said in the beginning there, this week we are going to be diving into Warrant's 1992 release, Dog Eat Dog. And actually, weirdly for Focus on Metal, usually we do these anniversary episodes months after the anniversary. This time we're actually early, and because this thing didn't come out until August. Got recorded February to April of 92, but didn't get released until August. Produced by the incredible Michael Wagner. And, in the liner notes, Janie Lane does actually write, this album is dedicated to Joey Allen, one of the most underrated guitarists in rock today. So it's only fitting that, if the album got dedicated to Joey Allen, why not talk to Joey Allen about the album? And that is exactly what Richie did, and you are going to hear the results of that over the next 2 weeks. But more importantly, you're going to hear the beginning of it right now.
I need to ask you, when I was supposed to do this on Friday, you said you were rehearsing some Dog Eat Dog songs. How many of them do you put in the set now?
We're putting 4 songs right now that are in the set.
Okay, nice. Because I think the last time I saw you, you only did 1.
Probably. Where'd you see us?
Tupelo Music Hall in New Hampshire.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, we probably just did Machine Gun, which we do a lot.
Yeah.
Because it was the first single off that record. But there's 4 songs right now in the set, and possibly more. We'll see how it all rolls out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to talk about Dog Eat Dog, but I need to go back a little bit and talk to you about Beau Hill.
Okay.
I've interviewed Beau, and I know Mike Slammer played some guitars on the first 2 albums, and you did some, but the way I want to approach this is I interviewed Beau about an album he did with Twisted Sister called Love is for Suckers.
Right.
He had Reb Beach play on that. Now, the process with Bo was he'd get the Twisted guys to play, and then he'd get Reb to play the same parts, and then he'd choose which one was better. And he said over 90% of the time, Reb's parts were better. Was that the way Bo did it with ye guys, that he got Mike to play all the parts and ye guys to play and just pick Mike's?
That's not how I understand it. If he did that, then that's crooked. What he did, and just so you're aware, from my understanding, unless Bo did something that nobody else is aware of, Mike played some solos, not all solos, okay? I played solos. I played mini solos on the first two records. I could go track by track and tell you which ones I played that I sat there and recorded. I could go track by track and tell you what solos I played on Cherry Pie.
Okay.
You know? So what he did was, he thought that Warrant needed an Ed Van Halen in the band. Warrant didn't have that. Warrant wasn't that type of band from the get-go. We weren't that type of band in clubs. We were who we were, and that's why we got signed. Janie wrote some great songs, and we delivered them the way we did as a band, period. What Bo wanted to do was Bo wanted to have a player on the records that was an Eddie Van Halen-esque type of guy. And at the time, neither Eric nor I were of that caliber, hands down. Not, debating that at all. So what Bo said and did was, we've got this guy, I'm going to bring him in. And from my perspective at that time, you got to remember, I'm in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I'm just signed to a major label, and I don't know how it all works. And he goes, we're going to bring this guy in to help out. And I thought like I didn't have a choice. That's how it was put to me. Like, you don't have a choice. This is what we're doing. Just want to be on the up and up. And I'm like, okay, not cool, but I guess. And what I immediately started doing with Mike Slamer, because I didn't like that, was and Mike is a wonderful human being. Okay. This is not by any means, mean anything derogatory about Mike. But I started taking lessons from Mike because I didn't like somebody else playing on my records. Period.
Yeah.
Okay. And I started taking lessons a lot from Mike. So, I could get better in that. We didn't need to bring him in. And, then we did the second record and Bo brought it in again. So to me, my perspective is that, especially after doing a record with Michael Wagner, which we did Dog Eat Dog with, which there were nobody but myself and Eric played on that record, guitar-wise. I think that was an easy way out for Bo, so he didn't have to sit there and work with me. I mean, go listen to the solo for Big Talk. Tell me what's wrong with that. That's me. Go listen to the solo for Heaven. The whole front end's me. The back, like last 4 seconds, the cadence up, that's Mike. So what's the difference to me? The difference to me is that, he wanted a guy that just could come in and nail it in a take or two instead of having you sit there and work with me for an hour or two. That's my personal opinion, if you really want it. And when we did Cherry Pie, and Mike played less solos on Cherry Pie than he did on the first record. If you take a listen to Rainmaker, that's me. Take a listen to Blind Faith, that's me. We can go on and go track by track if you want to.
Okay.
But the bottom line is when I was recording those solos, I did them with the engineer. Bo was too busy sitting in the back vocal booth dealing with Winger business because he managed Winger at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Bo would open the door in the studio in the vocal booth and listen to my take and go, nope, do it again. And me and the engineer would be sitting there going, that was a great run. Why do it again? He wasn't even vested. He was vested with Janie. He worked with Janie plenty. But when it came to guitars, he was already not interested in it before we even got started.
Okay. Did the label and the management want you to work with Bo Hill on Dog Eat Dog? Because the first two records went multi-platinum with him.
No. After Bo did what he did on Cherry Pie, and after he was not, vested in the project like he was on the first one, we didn't want to work with Bo again.
Okay.
And this is my remembering of how it went. And by the way, I've still got a great relationship with the engineer from Cherry Pie, Jimmy Hoyson. He came to one of our gigs. We invited him to one of our gigs. He's a very, very nice guy. And we even talked about doing something again, working together again. Because in my opinion, like I said, he produced Cherry Pie. Because when I did my tracks, Bo was busy with winger business. He can't dispute that. He also can't dispute the fact that when we would leave the room that we were paying for through our record deal, he would pull winger into track on our dime.
Wow.
Winger boys told me that. So there's all kinds of crap that goes on when you make a record. There's all kinds of crap in this business. I don't have a personal relationship with Bo Hill. I would never. I don't like what he did to Eric and I during one of either of those records, and I would never work with him again, ever.
Who took it, who out of you and Eric? Who took it the worst about the way he did the guitars?
Eric.
Eric did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Eric's my brother. Look, in this band, for the most part, on the last record, Louder, Harder, Faster, I played all the solos on Dog Eat Dog. I played most of the solos. There's one pass in Machine Gun in the pre-solo where Eric had some stingers. But that's just the way it rolled out. I mean, I practiced a lot. Not that Eric didn't practice or anything, but it's just how it rolled out in the band. And there's no animosity between Eric and I. There's times like let's go back to the first record, the solo to 32 Pennies. Me, live, I taught that to Eric, so there was a balance on stage. So I mean, we can go through this, and I've had this interview and talked about this so many fucking times until my face is blue. I'm not going to walk away from the fact that happened,
Yeah.
But my recollection of how it was managed with the people that were producing the record isn't great. It's not my recollection, but my feeling about it.
Yeah.
I felt like I had no choice,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can also empathize and with Bo and look at Bo and go, wow, he's got these two guitar players and neither of them's Ed Van Halen. That's what he thinks he needs. What's he going to do? He's going to go get a guy that's going to come in and help him make it that way, even though it sets up the band for some type of failure at some point if somebody doesn't step up and get better at their instrument.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, and it's over with. It's in the past, but at some point, I hope people stop asking.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking is I've never interviewed you before.
No, it's okay. I mean, if you look on the web, I've talked about it dozens of times.
Yeah, that's true.
In the same way, it gets old for me to have to reiterate the same thing. And I interviewed Bo, and Bo said this. Well, Bo doesn't remember the solo to Rainmaker because he wasn't in the studio when I did it.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
For an answer.
So
I'm not upset with you, but it's just like, fuck.
Yeah, I know. Let's move on from Bo then.
Okay, great.
Right. So you're going to start the third record. Tell me about the names of the producers that you wanted to work with.
Michael Wagner's the name of the producer we wanted to work with.
He was the only one?
I think at the time, that's all I remember, to be honest with you, because I know we were fond of the Skid Row records, and we wanted to get heavier, because if you listen to the first two records, the first record, to me, the most of the mix is vocals and drums. There's not a lot of guitar mixed in there. So when we got to the second record, arguably so, Eric and I were better players because we had been out on the road for over a year. And if you just play more, you get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's more guitar on Cherry Pie than there was on the first record as far as in the mix. Probably because of that. Maybe it was easier for the guys, and because we were better players then, to drop it in or pump it up a little bit. But when it came down to it, we wanted a heavier sound. And at the time, with Wagner doing, the Skid records, with Wagner doing, mixing the Metallica record, Justice for All, with him doing everything he did. Dokken, working with George and all that. We just thought it was a good mix, a good marriage, and when we met with him, he was fabulous.
Yeah. Were any of the songs that ended up on Dog Eat Dog submitted for the first two records?
The only one that I remember that was around then would have been Sad Teresa.
Okay. The last song
that
on the album.
That one we played in the clubs, before we even got a record deal. So that's the oldest one I remember. And again, everybody's got a different memory. It was almost 30 years ago, you know?
Yeah. I want to talk to you about Janie and his songwriting, because in a lot of ways it's unusual for one guy, especially the singer, to write all the songs. Did you talk to Janie about how he approached songwriting and what his methods were?
Janie wrote the songs from the get-go. When somebody's that talented or gifted at writing, I mean, you kind of just back off and let them do what they do. I mean, I'm still to this day, if you look at the last three records that have happened with Warrant, I think I've got a writing credit on one song. I'm not a songwriter. I'm just not that guy. I'm a guitar player. I'm a wingman. I'm not a guy I don't have that knack. I don't have that melody knack. I mean, Robert has it. Jerry has it. Eric even has it more than I do. I don't have it. When you get a guy like Janie in the band that's so good at it, that you just let him do his thing. I never wanted to interrupt the process. I would support it. If he would go, hey man, I've got this riff, come here, check it out, what do you think? And I would play along and help him out if he needed it, or if he had something that was completely done, or mostly done, and he brought it into rehearsal and he would show me the riff, then I would have to play the riff. And, if you're a musician or know very many musicians, not everybody plays the same way. Not everybody has the same feel, the same cadence. And so certainly if I'm playing one of Janie's songs that he's written, and he's got to at some point go, that's great. That's it. Good. And it's still going to be the way I'm playing it, with palm muting and the way you pick up or down. And I mean, there's a lot of things that change. So long story short, I never really bugged him or got into his process. I didn't want to interrupt it. Yeah.
When he presented songs to the band to play, would he present the full song with no solo in it and then leave it up to you to do the solos? Did he play it acoustically to you?
Usually he'd play it acoustically.
Okay.
So it's not like the rhythm parts for guitars, although they were there was some artistic freedom for me and Eric to play the way we played. That's what I'm trying to say, is that you don't, just because you write Smoke on the Water, not everybody plays Smoke on the Water like Ritchie Blackmore does.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a way, there's a soul and a heartbeat behind every musician, and when you get 4 or 5 musicians together, they're like fingerprints on a hand. The pinky fingerprint's different from the ring fingerprint. The middle fingerprint's different from the thumb fingerprint. But when you put all those fingerprints together and make a fist, you have a fist. You have something powerful. And that's the best way I can describe a band, and our band, is that, Lane had the gift for writing. And just as much as he had the gift for writing, Stephen Sweet, our drummer, had the gift for singing those high melodies.
Yes, he did.
And so his voice is just as important in Warrant as the song itself to me. And the way that he plays open-handed on the drums, which not a lot of drummers do. And if you talk to any drummers that, or cats that do it for a living, they'll tell you that's very unique. and that has a lot to do with the sound of Warrant. Same thing with the way Eric and I play. It's all part of that fist. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Joey, did any of the songs ever change a lot then from when Janie brought it in, that maybe the tempo changed on it, or it got a lot heavier than what Janie envisioned in the beginning? Or did you more or less keep the same blueprint that he brought?
The blueprint, if you're talking about blueprint as far as, the basic arrangement of the song.
Yes.
Yeah, probably for the most part they'd stay the same. Sometimes it would change. In pre-production, when you're working with a producer, producers can change it. Producers can say, play this writing A that's written, all the way through this verse, play it with all downstrokes, or play it with all upstrokes, or play it with down and upstrokes, because all three of those sound different. And so things like that, technical things like that, would happen all the time. They would happen when you're setting a recording.
Okay.
But as far as arrangement and or the writing of it, I mean, it could change a little bit. But the way that Lane wrote, back to that one question, is that his thing was, if it doesn't sound good on an acoustic guitar and it doesn't translate on an acoustic guitar, then no matter what type of icing you put on the cake's still going to taste like shit.
Yeah.
You got to have a great foundation to have a great song. And when he would come up with something like Heaven, for instance, which was there before we even got a record deal, and there when I auditioned for the band, you hear something like that and you're like, fuck, this guy's a great songwriter,
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way it was. A lot of the other bands in LA that had way better players, that had guys coming out of GIT that could play circles around any of us. Their biggest thing they didn't have was songs, and that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an amazing player, you can be an amazing singer, you can be all kinds of things, but when it comes down to it, people remember the songs before they remember who sang them.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to anybody out there that's a great player. I'm a fan of a lot of guitar players, and I can hold my own now. I've really worked hard in the last 40 years to get better as a player, but I'm still not, nor will I ever be or ever pretend to be of anywhere close to like Ed Van Halen or Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, all those guys who I deeply love listening to. And I'm just not that guy, man. And it's okay. So, I can sleep at night.
So, Joey, whose decision was it to record the album in Morrisound Studios in Florida? Because that studio primarily was known for, death metal and thrash metal back then.
My memory of that was that we wanted to get as far away from Hollywood and the glitz and glamour and shiny, Warrant's a pop metal band as possible. And I don't know how that came up, but when it did and it was presented to the band, I'm sure we all said that's fucking perfect, because we just wanted away from it, and go somewhere where we could go for 6 weeks where it was just the band. A small amount of our crew came with us, and Michael Wagner, and we spent 6 weeks down there, and it was the best thing we ever did. It was the most fun I've ever had making a record. Michael Wagner is a mad genius in my eyes. Not to belittle Keith Olsen, who we did a record with later, or Jeff Pilson, who's an equally great producer. It was just, we were all in our 20s making a rock record in Tampa, and we didn't have any, none of the girlfriends or wives were down there. I mean, imagine, and then you got Michael Wagner behind the desk. It was brilliant.
Yeah. How much pre-production did you do with Michael on the album?
Probably not as much as we did with Bo. After 2 records with Bo and 2 world tours, you get better. And I think just we demoed a lot for that record more than anything, in my recollection. And then once you nail it down, like I've got tapes out in my garage of the demo sessions for all those records of songs that didn't make the record, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we spent some time, but I don't remember exactly how much time we spent.
Okay.
But I would think it would be a little less than with Bo, maybe because the band was, probably playing better at the time.
Mm. So what do you think then, Joey? What's the main differences between the way Michael produced you and the way Bo produced you?
I think that a producer's job is to take the band and get the best they can down on tape. I think that when you're not trying to make something that it isn't, you're trying to take that band and those songs and get the essence of what I was talking about before, the 5 fingers and the 5 separate fingerprints that make the band. And get it on tape. That's what's important as a producer. And that's what Michael did. Michael didn't try to make us something we weren't by bringing somebody out in from the outside to make the record. He wasn't trying to cut corners. He was more concerned with us as a band than Bo was from my perspective because of the way he handled the record. I just, my experience is my experience. One of the other guys might say something different. For me, because I worked so fucking hard on that record to get rid of the stigma of somebody else playing on one of our records, that working with him was like the perfect fit, at the time. He cared. It was fun. It was never adverse. When you're trying to squeeze something out of a musician, hey, do that again, try this, do that, blah, blah, blah. There's ways to do it without making it uncomfortable, There's ways to motivate people without yelling. There's ways to bring the best out of somebody without yelling and without being, adverse and make somebody feel poor or not well. And Michael was that guy. I mean, I'd love to do it. He's retired. I'd love to work with him again. We were talking about it prior to doing Louder, Harder, Faster, but with him in Nashville, it just didn't work for us, at the time.
Mm.
But my best experience ever doing a record was with Michael Wagner on Dog Eat Dog.
Okay.
By far.
Was it easy to get the guitar sound you wanted on Dog Eat Dog with Michael, or was there a lot of trial and error?
It was super easy. There was a company down in Florida called Thoroughbred Music. They brought in, we got a hold of them. We had a bunch of our own gear. We had our road gear. We had our, the amps from home you buy through the years that are badass. I had a dual rectifier, I think number 4 off the line. Michael had a Macintosh power amp. Michael had an 88 preamp that was killer. We brought all these guitars. We probably had 20, 30 guitars in the studio. And one day, we told everybody else, besides Eric and I, go away. And we had lined up cabinets and amplifiers in the main room of More Sound Studios. And we just started going through them one by one. We'd plug in one amp to one cabinet. We'd go through all the cabinets. We'd find that right fit if we, and we'd go keep on doing it, at least 6, 7 amps, 8 amps, maybe, that Thoroughbred brought down. And I'm talking about old vintage Marshalls and Fenders and High Watts and everything you can imagine. And at the end of the day, you get about, 3 or 4 tones, and you send all the other gear back, and that's it. And that's what we did. It was a fucking blast.
You see, we're on a mission from God.
Doesn't it sound, are you a guitar player?
I am not.
Doesn't it sound fun if you were one?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a kid in a candy store. Michael that's the difference between Michael. That's the way Michael did it. The way Bo did it was Bo would make you play bone dry without any effects, which is really hard Now it's not because I'm a different player, but then it's really, really hard to play with with very little gain and bone dry, like a Malcolm Young, who was brilliant at it. It's harder than hell to play that way. And that's the way we did those records with Bo.
Mm.
You know? I mean, we'd have a $250,000 budget, and he would make our bass player boil his strings. You know? I mean, there's just stuff that just is like, really? Come on. So, Michael was a pleasure, man.
Well, I interviewed Ty Tabor recently from King's X.
Right.
And I was talking to him about Michael because they did a couple of records with Michael. One of the things he said, because he's a producer now as well, he's got his own studio. He said Michael is a genius at capturing sounds and mic placement and all that. Was that something that you wanted to ask Michael about? Like, why are you doing this and why aren't we doing that?
No, I just watched him work. I mean, I'm not a producer. I don't own a studio. I don't even have a digital studio in my house. If I do anything, I go to somewhere, with somebody that's got it. But Michael was that guy. He was immersed in all that. I agree with Ty. I mean, he used on songs like The Bitter Pill, when there's an orchestra in there, Andy Warhol was right. We did that in the A room at Capitol Records in Hollywood, and he had this thing at the time called a headphone mic. And it was actually microphones in the ears of a mannequin head. Okay? So, like, when you listen to that CD, Dog Eat Dog, with your earphones on, it should be all around you, that orchestra. And that's the kind of things Michael did. I mean, who does that? That's insane, right?
Yeah. That's
the kind of fun we had with Michael. The April 30, 2031, the Lane's apocalyptic version of America, which I hope doesn't come true anytime soon. On it, you hear in the very beginning, you hear the wind blowing. It's supposed to be, the world's gone. We've just blown it all up. And there's a sign swinging in the wind. And that's actually my guitar strap squeaked. And Michael, being Michael, when we were recording, he had heard it during a solo and goes, wow, that's squeaky. And then later on he goes, hey, go get that guitar with the squeaky strap. And I go up and picked it up, and he goes, and he pulls up April 2031, and he goes, make it squeak. And I made it squeak, and that's on the record. That kind of stuff with Michael. I mean, how fun is that?
Yeah.
That's making a record to me. That's like great times. The band was firing on all cylinders. We were all getting along great. Janie was in a good place. He wasn't, this is when he got all dark with alcohol and everything. And it was great.
Whose idea was it to add the child's voices on the orchestra to some of the songs?
I think that was Janie's idea.
Okay. And were you in the studio when they recorded those parts?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I plead the fifth.
What was your initial reaction then when you heard those completed songs with all those added into it?
I probably heard it like the day, because the way the studio worked for me is that we were living in Tampa. We had 6 weeks down in Tampa. We had everybody, two band members would share a condo. So I was staying with Jerry, because Jerry and I, back in the day, when we were all young, Jerry and I hung out more together than Eric. Eric hung out with Janie. I hung out with Jerry, and Steven kind of always just did his own thing. And then Michael had his own condo. And what would happen is about 10 in the morning, is you would hear this rental Lincoln car. It would start up. You'd hear the engine rev like it was going to be blown up, and then you'd hear it screech down the parking lot to my condo. And Michael would yell, "Dudski!" out the window, and I'd roll out about 10:30 and go get in the car with him, and then he'd squeal out of the parking lot, tearing the shit out of this poor rental car. And Michael and I would go to the studio first. And Michael and I would be in the studio from about 11 till we'd do 3 hours a day, maybe 4 sometimes, of guitar tracking. And then the other guys would roll in. And when the other guys would roll in, it'd be lunchtime. And Michael would proudly claim, food! And we'd go eat somewhere for an hour, and we'd come back, and then they would get into Eric's tracks or vocal tracks. And a lot of the vocal stuff was done at night. And I don't even know where those kids recorded. That could have happened post-Tampa. That could have happened in L.A., for all I know, because I think some of the kids on there are friends of the band or friends of Janie, maybe.
So when you're tracking guitars with Michael, how does he push you as a guitar player to get a better performance out of you? What's
the best way? Like a great wingman. That's the best way I can say it. He's not polite about it, but he's not angry about it. It's the best of both worlds. I mean, the guy just knows how to communicate with musicians to where it makes you want to keep going, even when your fingers feel like they're bleeding. It gets to the point with Michael where you're like, you get a track and he goes, that was it. And you're like, no, I can do it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you work with other producers, and I'm not going to name any names, where you just want it to go away because it's so painful,
Yeah.
And not fun. And, to me personally, for all the records I've done, which I think it's been 6 now, the first 3 with Janie and the last 3 with Robert, 2 with Robert, 1 with Jamie St. James. My favorite record still, hands down, Dog Eat Dog. And it's probably the experience I had with Michael Wagner, where the band was at the time. The band was in top shape. We had, 2 world tours under our belts, like I said before. Just a fabulous experience. So he would push you, but not to the point where you didn't want to be around him. He'd push you and he'd get what he wanted, and then once he got what he wanted, he'd let you fuck around for another 20 or 30 minutes trying to do it better when you probably didn't, and he would probably just use what he liked in the first place.
And Joe, you mentioned there that like Dog Eat Dog's your favourite album of the 6 you've done. Now, to me, and I got it when it came out, it sounds like a complete album with peaks and valleys, like, mood-wise, rather than just a great collection of songs. It just sounds like a full record.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I think that it is, out of all of them. And I think that comes with maturity. I mean, it's like anything, the band. I mean, look at the trials and the tribulations from the first go. I mean, literally, if I didn't step up, guitar-wise and get my shit together and take lessons from Mike Slamer and get better at my craft, I could have been replaced real easily, But that wasn't the case. And when that record was written and Lane got heavier, being a guy that grew up in the band, Eric did too, so I don't want to sound like the only metalhead in the band, but being a guy that was into, Priest and Maiden and UFO, and, like I was in a band with Lars Ulrich before Metallica even came around.
And that is the absolute perfect place to stop for this week. Did Joey really say what he just said? Yeah, he did. And as I said, I'm cutting it off right here for the week. You can hear more about that on the next episode.
I am in intense pain, Pinky.
When we run part 2 of the interview with Joey Allen, all about Dog Eat Dog. But for this week, that's it. There ain't no more. Stick a fork in it. This puppy is done. So for Richie, myself, and everybody else here at Focus on Metal, have yourselves a great metal week. And until we talk to you again, remember...
Focus on Metal!
Everything else is insignificant.
It's over. Go home.